Yeah, I've just got to read something as well.
Okay, I'll call you back. I'm at Creed then. So after the eulogies, then you can say whether you want to come in and do a Creed or not. Okay.
The fan blew your papers, so you're right.
Yeah, I'll just check things. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me all right at the back? Larry, can you hear us there? All good. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun. Of happy memories I will leave when my life is done. I'm sure that's something Brian would have said to us and to the family. Welcome to everyone to the celebration of Brian's life. To the family, to Noreen, Sandy, Gary, to Drew, Veronica and Liam, we pass on our sincere condolences on the sad loss of Brian. On behalf of Noreen and the family, I'd like to welcome you all here as well, and to thank you for sharing this sad occasion with the family. It was a life well lived. Thank you for showing your support to the family, and this turnout shows just how much Brian was held in high regard by us all. To all the grandchildren, I believe we have 3 grandchildren that are watching online. We send our commiserations to you as well. And your grandfather was a wonderful person. He was very proud of you all, spoke very highly of not only his grandkids, but his children as well. He was a very proud father and proud of what Sandy and Gary had achieved in their lives. Noreen, you were a pillar of support for Brian in all those years, in all aspects of his life. And thank you for the love and support that you gave him throughout your many years together. Although he had a strong personality, Brian, he always knew you were there for him. And he always spoke very highly of you. To Sveli, who's looked after Brian for so many years, he's spent more time with Brian than anybody in the last number of years. It's really thanks for what you did for Brian. Eh? I'm sure the family appreciate it, and you enabled Brian to carry on living his life. As I said, Brian was highly respected by all those he came into contact with, and he was loved by us all. And although he was small in stature, he was a giant in what he achieved in his life. Having come from some fairly humble beginnings, Brian did extremely well in business, and he had an illustrious nomad's career, which I will chat about a little later on. We're now going to commence with a number of eulogies or speeches. We're going to just give you the order so that you know what to expect. Gary will speak first, then Sandy, then Drew, then myself, then Robin Gray. Then I'm just going to read out a message from a long friend of Brian's, long-lost friend, not long-lost, but an old friend of Brian's who couldn't be with us today. We have had a number of apologies, quite a few, and too many to read out, but I will pass them on to Noreen. After I've read out the John Hooper message, if anybody else would like to come up and say a few words, you're most welcome to. I'll now hand over to Gary.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you especially for caring for my dad. You were always very kind to him, and he valued your friendship. Thank you for being there for him, just recently following him to the hospital, coming to visit my mom the day he passed, and many other times. I know he appreciated you, and he was lucky to have you as a friend. I'd also like to thank my mom's sister, Ethne, for coming up from Cape Town to be with her during this time. It's been a great comfort knowing that you're here, and I really do appreciate it. My dad was born in 1941 in Bloemfontein. He was the youngest of two children, and his sister Kathleen still lives in the UK. The family moved up here when he was still young, and they settled in Primrose, where he went to Primrose Hill Primary, and then on to Germiston High School, just across the water here. His mom died when he was 13 of cancer, and this must have been very hard for him. But despite this and other challenges, he finished school, he got his matric, he went to Tech and studied metallurgy, got his diploma, and his first job was as a gold assayer, measuring the purity of gold bars for the mines. He met my mom when she was at school, also at Germiston High, even though the boys and girls schools were separate in those days. And arguably, his finest achievement came early on in his career, when he convinced my mom to agree to marry him. They were married in 1965. He was 24 and my mom was just 19. They started with nothing and rented a one-bedroom flat above a corner cafe in 4th Avenue, not far from here. Despite being shorter than her and broke, she obviously saw something in him, and luckily for Sandy and I, the marriage went from strength to strength. And this November would have been their 58th anniversary. Dad's life changed when he met an Englishman called Jack Parry, who had a lighting business in the UK. My dad convinced him to start a South African branch, and so Parry South Africa came to be. It was a brave move, giving up the known for the unknown, but he backed himself. Parry became very successful, and in the 1980s was bought out by the Allied Technologies group of companies and incorporated into Lascon Lighting Industries. Although my dad had a senior position at Lascon, he now had people above him who he needed to check with before making certain decisions. And having been his own boss for so long, this frustrated him, and it wasn't long before he handed in his resignation. His resignation came with a 5-year restraint of trade, and those years proved equally frustrating for him. He opened a branch of a Cape Town-based paint company, but his heart was in lighting, so as soon as the 5 years were up, he contacted Steve Sherwood, who had been with him from the early days of Parry, and together they started LCI, Luminaire Component Industries. Using old overseas friends and contacts, LCI imported lighting components and distributed them locally, doing so successfully for many years. Then, in 2009, a few weeks before his 68th birthday, he suffered a stroke that paralyzed his right side. It was a devastating blow, but in typical fashion, he set about trying to make a full recovery. Fortunately, he still had his mental faculties and was able to speak. He resisted a wheelchair for many years, opting to shuffle with a walking stick rather than give up. He even passed his disabled driver's license, but luckily for us, that didn't go any further. My dad was extremely generous. He loved to socialize and he loved golf. And in Nomads, he found an organization that ticked all these boxes. He joined in 1974, and when he had his stroke, he played 391 games in 35 years. He was determined to get to 400 and even started hitting balls one-handed, but sadly never played again. He was awarded an honorary life membership, of which he was very proud, in 2010, and enjoyed 49 years as a member. After his stroke, we realized that my dad would need a carer, as my mom wasn't physically strong enough to help with his day-to-day needs. And we were incredibly lucky when Zweli arrived to help out. He went above and beyond, and his help allowed my dad to carry on living his life as best he could. He drove my dad to Nomads prize givings, to lunches and dinners, often waiting in the car until my dad was ready to go home. Knowing that Zweli was looking after him was a huge comfort to me, and something I'll be eternally grateful for. Growing up, my dad was strict but fair. He taught me manners and respect, especially for women, and in particular my mom. He worked late often, and I was so proud to have such a hard-working father. Later realizing he was mainly working on his work-life balance, he did take us on amazing holidays and showed us the world, and I had the privilege of a stable home environment filled with unconditional love and wanting for nothing. After his stroke, he would phone me weekly, asking if we were going to see him on that Sunday for lunch. Nothing made him happier than spending time with his family and seeing his grandkids. I'm so grateful that we were able to spend this time with him, and those memories will last forever. My dad was a giver. He was very likable, and knowing how much he meant to so many people reminds me of how lucky I was to have him as a dad. Even at the end, when he was in hospital struggling to breathe, his last words were, "How's Jamie? And how's Liam?" To my wife, Veronica, thank you for your love and unwavering support, not just now, but over the years. Your strength and compassion and ability to prioritize others over yourself make you the most amazing person, and I'm so lucky to have you in my life. To Jamie and Liam, thank you as well for often making the effort to join us and spend time with him. I know he really appreciated it, and so did I. Well, this is a celebration of his life, and what a life. We are all here today because he touched our lives in some way, and we are better off for knowing him. I invite you to keep his memory alive in your hearts, and thank you for being here and making his life so meaningful. Dad, I love you. I'll miss you. Thank you for everything.
Hi everybody, thanks for being here. Before I speak a bit more about my dad, I have a few thank yous. Firstly, to my family, Drew, Nicole and Tanner, and Stacey and Ryan. I'm so very grateful that we were all together on a cruise when we got the sad news of my dad's passing. It was the first time we'd all been together in 16 months, and so it was special we could be there to support each other. I know the girls and their partners are watching online from the UK now. I love you all very much. Secondly, a big thanks to Gary and Veronica, my Auntie Ethne, and Zweli and Sophie for being there to support my mom, who was adamant that we didn't cut our trip short. I really am indebted to you all. And then thirdly, thanks to all my friends for their love and support, some from overseas and some from here. A number of you are here today or watching online, and a couple of you even wished my mom and visited her. Many of you have never even met my dad. A big thank you. As Gary and Glenn mentioned, my dad came from humble beginnings and always wanted our lives to be better than his had been, ensuring we got a top-class education. Some of my earliest memories are also of him working late and not even joining us on some of our holidays. We used to go on the train to visit Auntie Ethne and spend some of our holidays there while Dad was at work. In many of my school holidays, I used to go into work with him at Perry's, Lascon, and even LCI. Eventually, all Dad's hard work paid off, and he was able to take us on a number of overseas holidays, which was not the norm in the day. On our first trip to the UK, when I was about 10, I even recall that we were picked up from Heathrow by Mr. Jack Perry and driven to Derby in his fancy Rolls Royce. I still have a huge love of travel, thanks to our exposure to foreign places while growing up. Sometimes I think Drew wishes the travel bug hadn't bitten me so hard, though. My dad always referred to me as his special angel, and even said to me the night before I turned 13 that I was now going to be his special teen angel. As Gary mentioned, Dad was pretty strict. His two pet hates were if we cheat my mom or if Gary and I bickered or fought. If this ever happened, Mom would say that Dad will deal with you tonight. Because he worked late most nights, I remember telling Mom that I didn't want supper and I was going to bed early, hoping to avoid the lecture or a hiding from Dad. Sadly, that never happened, as he always came into the room when he got home and dished out the punishment. I suppose it taught us good values. Luckily, I was generally not as naughty as Gary, so it didn't happen to me too often. My dad always had an amazing general knowledge and read the newspaper every day, something which I still do too. He even used to brag that he was one of the few people he knew who had failed a matric subject, but still managed to get a first-class pass, as it was called in the day. That subject was Latin, by the way. Dad was the person you wanted on your team when playing Trivial Pursuit, as he knew the answers to some of the most obscure questions. He also always gave great advice, and I will miss his wisdom, even though we often didn't agree on everything. The character trait that I most admired in my dad was his generosity. I'm sure many of us here today have been at the receiving end of this generosity and kindness. Thank you, Dad, for all you did for us and gave us as the King family. You were always very proud of your granddaughters, Nicole and Stacey, and welcomed their partners into the family too. In a minute, Drew will read a few words from Nicole, and this is a message from Stacey. My grandpa taught me many valuable lessons growing up, that hard work and determination will lead you to achieve success, good manners and being respectful will not go unnoticed, and that being generous to others takes nothing away from yourself. I count my blessings every day that I got to spend so much time with my grandparents growing up, and I will always cherish the special times we shared, especially now that I'm far away. Some of my favorite memories include Grandpa firing up the gas braai to cook casseroles for Sunday afternoon lunch, and the December holidays we spent all together in Ramsgate, where Grandpa would graciously give up his armchair so that Nick and I could swing round and round. Grandpa always surrounded himself with many dear friends and took great pleasure in taking his family out for a lovely lunch or dinner. His presence will be greatly missed. To my gran, Mom and Dad, Uncle Gary and Auntie Veronica, my cousins, I'm so sorry for the loss of your husband, father, father-in-law, and Grandpa. I know things are going to be difficult for a while, but when you feel sad or alone, you must just look around the room to know how supported you are by all those who loved Grandpa. Grandpa had so much love for you, his gnaw, and I will never forget how he would always greet you with a kiss on the forehead when he came home from work, sending you so much love at this time. Grandpa, although you have left this world now and your absence is deeply felt, we can all take solace from the thought that you no longer have to fight the courageous fight you fought since your stroke. Your legacy will live on for many years to come through the lives of the friends and family you touched during your time on earth. I will miss you and think fondly of you always. The past few months, we had noticed that my dad was getting more frail. He carried his long-standing disability with a lot of dignity, but it must have been hard. Thanks to Zweli for always being his right hand, literally and figuratively. Dad, you are now free of your discomfort, and I take peace that you passed quickly and didn't suffer in hospital as you hated being there. Mom, we send you love too, and hope that the great memories you and Dad shared over the 60 years or more you were together will bring you comfort. Dad, I'm sure you're playing a few rounds of golf with your Nomads mates wherever you are now. We love and miss you, and I will always be your special angel.
I'm just going to read the message from Nicole first. My grandpa was an incredible man, humble beginnings, and worked hard and to create a successful business and provide for his family. Some of the attributes I'd most admire about him was his strength and perseverance. For the past 14 odd years and for many years before that, he had shown incredible strength and determination to really live life to its fullest, even in the face of some pretty tough challenges. He has always shown a zest for life, surrounding himself with a group of friends who adored and respected him. He always made sure that his family were taken care of and was a man of deep generosity towards others. As the firstborn grandchild, in his eyes, I could do very little wrong, and this made me feel understood, even during those times when I felt that no one was on my side. He made me feel special, and for that, I will always be grateful. To my mom, Uncle Gary, and Gran, I'm so sorry for your loss. Grief is a hard thing to move through and looks so different to every person. To Gran, I can't even imagine what you're going through right now, but just know that you're not going through it alone. You are being sent love and support from all over the world, including all the way here from the UK. Grandpa, you may have left this earth, but you have most definitely left an imprint on all of our hearts. Just some memories from me. Mr. Cusins, who eventually became Dad to me after he allowed me to marry Sandy all those years ago. I'll never forget that day I asked Mr. and Mrs. Cusins if I could marry Sandy. Mr. Cusins said, I see that you make Sandy happy, and know that you'll make a great husband and father, and you'll make a success of anything you put your mind to. It would be an honor to have you in the family. Wow. To hear such words from somebody that you so admired and respected made me truly feel on top of the world. Dad always believed in people, the good in people, and the passion in people. In the passion in people. And And, sorry.
Even if I came from Resettenville.
Yeah, Dad always believed in the good in people and the passion in people, even if I came from Resettenville in the deep south of Johannesburg. Dad never gave up on me. I remember while looking for a job after the army, I worked for Dad delivering paint. He encouraged me every single day that I should pursue my dreams and never give up on my passion of working in financial markets. Dad, if it wasn't for you and your encouragement and belief in me, I may have taken the easier route and joined an accounting firm and given up on that passion. I always thank you for believing in me. Dad loved sports, the golf, but other sports, and would watch sports as often as he could. We would always chat about the Bok games and the soccer, even though my soccer knowledge was definitely not in the same league as his. He had such an insight into the players and would be able to identify players like he was reading from the team sheet. We would celebrate the triumphs and shake our heads at the losses, but never gave up on those Springboks. Dad also loved technology, any kind of technology. I still remember Sandy and Mom rolling their eyes when Dad's new technology was presented to us. From the automated house lighting system that Dad put in when they built the house, years before it was fashionable to manage electricity consumption, to the latest Apple phones and tablets, 3D and curved TVs, solar systems, mobile phone signal enhancers, all the way to his latest electric car Dad bought. He loved his latest technology. That mind of his was always on the pulse of technology advancement and would proudly show us the new gadget and what it could do. Sometimes it would go right over my head until I caught up later. Just before we went on holiday a few weeks ago, we wanted to know all about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and believed that this was the start of a new era and the ultimate demise of cash. As Stacey said, Dad was the ultimate braai master, braaiing every Sunday before the stroke for the family. He was also very adventurous with his braai, buying meats and horses from small butcheries that he came across on his work travels. Dad and I would try the new purchases while we would braai good old Woolies lamb chops and Kessler chops for Mom and Sandy. He also loved his hot sauces. Boy, was he the hot sauce fundi. Every Sunday, he would pull out the latest bottle, bought from some tunny on the side of the road. I would sometimes feel the heat escaping from the top of my head while Dad was there putting on more of the thick red sauce onto his steak of horse. He loved his hot food and his curries, and sometimes I would just see that face go red, but he just kept going. As Stace also said, Dad also made the best prawns I've ever tasted. Those deep-fried garlic king prawns were to die for, and provided the perfect end to a year when Dad would cook up a feast of prawns, his latest hot sauce for Dad and I, and a couple of beers as the sun went down in Ramsgate on New Year's Eve. Dad, you were a true gentleman. You loved and would do anything for your family and friends, and you believed in the human spirit and always giving people a chance to shine. You were so loved by every person that touched your life. It was my honor to have been part of your life, and the world has lost a true legend of a man in your passing. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, Sandy, and Drew. Recently, I attended a memorial service for a friend of mine, and he was a principal at a school here in Germiston, and his son from the podium mentioned that his father had often said to him and his sister over the course of their young lives that it's not your altitude or your aptitude in life that will get you anywhere. It is your attitude. Not your aptitude or your altitude, but your attitude. Brian was a perfect example of this, of having the right attitude, especially after he had his disabling stroke. He chose attitude over altitude and aptitude and got on with his life, despite the fact that he was carrying such a heavy burden with his very limited mobility. Brian was determined not to let this disability stop him from living a good social life. And after his stroke, he set about rehabilitation with a determination to overcome his disability as best he could. It was this determination instilled in his inner self that enabled Brian to achieve all the things he had done during his full and successful life before he had the stroke. As Gary said, he was determined to drive, he was determined to play golf, he wanted to get to that magical 400 game in Nomads, which at that time was pretty much unheard of 14 years ago. He could have easily turned into a recluse and spent time at his home in that condition. Instead, he chose to live his life to the full, set about organizing himself with Veli so that he could have lunch with his friends, and although he was very conscious of his condition initially, he overcame that feeling, and later he was not afraid to be out, coming with us to all sorts of do's, Joburg Sportsman's Club and the likes. This club here was one of Brian's favorite places, and I can still see him sitting in his favorite spot. If you're facing out to the lake from the bar, the right-hand table, he was there sometimes 4 days a week, came and read his book on his Kindle, and he was happy in himself, just sitting, relaxing, and if he could find somebody to join him and have lunch with him, he was very, very happy. Brian, Les Floyd and I had lunch quite often, and Les used to joke with him because Brian always said, "No, single, please," whereas Les drinks those doubles. And Brian would drink 2 singles faster than Les could drink his double. But anyway, Brian was not, he was a social drinker, as you know. He wasn't a drinker. He had the odd tipple, as most of these nomads here do. And he was certainly only a social drinker, enjoying drinks in the company of his friends. If you pause for a minute and just think about how hard it must have been for Brian to make that decision to battle on and make sure he got out and about. Can you imagine how difficult it is to get up in the morning, to get mobile and get clean, even with the help of Noreen and Sveli? Every movement from point A to B must be a mission, and we all just take it for granted in life. And Brian battled through that for all these years. I think, again, Noreen and Sveli, thank you for what you did to make Brian's last 14 years happy years, and although it was very difficult for him, he still got out and about. He was a very generous man, Brian, and never shy to pay his way, buy his friends a drink. He was a very principled man and lived a sincere and full life, very committed to his family and friends, and those values he had in life endeared him to all those he came into contact with. Brian made some good and long-lasting friends, and there are many people here today who will attest to that. A lot of his good friends have passed on before him, the likes of Josh Stewart, Sid Green, Ian Frew, Dennis Austin, I believe, Brian Sylvester, Ronnie Jones, Ronnie Sinclair, Dave Chewins. This was a circle of friends like you've never seen in your life before. Naughty, in a good, honest way, and just a wonderful group of people to be associated with. Hopefully Brian is back in a healthy body and playing golf with all those guys at this stage. Some of the funniest occasions, as I say, were with this bunch. The banter and the bull dust, if you want to call it, was very prevalent when they got together. But it was all good fun and a bit of a circus at the time, and very entertaining. Brian was a natural sportsman, played soccer, he played tennis, I believe, and was a good soccer player, played at a high level in South Africa, and he loved watching sports, and he was very knowledgeable about his sport. Being a friend of Brian's meant you were in for the long haul. People such as Bernie Lane, who's here today. Bernie was best man at Brian and Noreen's wedding, and Brian was best man at Bernie's wedding. I'm also going to read out something from John Hooper just in a short while. And John Hooper, also a long-standing friend of Brian's. And a lot of the people here today have been friends with Brian for probably upwards of 40 years. As a business partner, Brian was much trusted, which is so important in any successful business. Steve Sherwood, also here today, was a partner of Brian's for many years and mentioned how trustworthy and fair Brian was in all the business dealings that he had with Steve and between Steve and Brian. Before moving on to Brian's nomadic career, I just also mention again, he was a man of integrity, and although these attributes and his sincerity are often mentioned at gatherings such as this, in Brian's case, these were genuine traits of his character, and he lived his whole life based on these noble principles. Right, the nomads. There was a large part of Brian's life, as Gary mentioned. He joined Nomads in 1974, and as you said, would have got his 50th year. Sorry, I've got a few repetitions, but I'll cut short where I can. He was a very committed nomad, and he was Transvaal captain 1986, national chairman 92, served Nomads in various capacities over his nomadic career. Noreen was one of the earliest Nomads ladies, non-playing in those days, and Noreen was an integral part of Nomads. They did the handicapping, they did the Gary player knockout. Well, when I say they, I think Noreen did it. Brian got all the credit and Noreen did all the work. Not that Brian was like that, but Noreen did all in the old days before the modern technology, the handicapping and the Gary player was done by Brian and Noreen. Brian actually remained friendly with Andrew Mentis himself. For those that are non-nomads, Andrew Mentis started an endowment fund, which Brian ran for many years as well. And Andrew passed away a number of years ago at 95, but Brian remained in contact with him. And that fund has raised about over 40 million rand since inception for those less fortunate than ourselves. And Brian was an integral part of assisting and administering that fund for a long time. Brian was also one of the stalwarts of Golforama. In fact, before I joined Nomads, I met Brian at Sun City with a bunch of hoodlums that were running the $1 million in those days. And it was always hard work during the day, and we had one hell of a laugh and lots of fun in the evenings. You mentioned he had 391 games, so he tried to get that 400 game badge. Unfortunately, even though trying to hit that ball with one arm, he didn't make it. He was made an honorary member of Transvaal Nomads Golf Club, now Gauteng Nomads, and then made an honorary life member of Nomads Golf Club South Africa, which is really a big honor, and it's only bestowed on those who have given exceptional service to Nomads. You can count them on your hands and your fingers and toes, I think, how many have actually been appointed honorary life members in the 63 years of Nomads. And in fact, we have, I think, 3 or 4 honorary life members here today to pay their respects to Brian. One highlight of his nomadic career, not everybody knows that, when he was national chairman, he was instrumental in the founding of the Boerland Nomads Golf Club. And as a result, in the inaugural game, F.W. de Klerk was there to play with the founding captain of Nomads, and Brian, as the national chairman, got to play with F.W. de Klerk, a chain-smoking president at the time. It was before 1994. And in fact, poor old de Klerk had to use his bodyguard as a caddy, so no wonder they can't play golf, him and Donald Trump together. I don't know how a policeman's going to give you a line for a putt when you're on the golf course. Brian was a regular traveller as well with Nomads, attended most of the national tournaments before he became disabled. And even after that, he still used to attend. He used to attend the prize givings. Now, in the last 14 years, he hardly missed a prize giving. He would go and sit there and mingle with his nomad friends, and that's almost unheard of for someone to have done that. And that is why you see the turnout of Nomads here today as well. He was always booked for a Nomads tour. I think he went to New Zealand on tour. You might have gone on one of the Spanish ones earlier, I'm not sure, but Brian was not shy to get involved in the social aspect of Nomads. He was a member of Wanderers Golf Club for many years until he had the stroke. He was still a member of Johannesburg Sportsman's Club. And in fact, last Monday, we had a lunch with 400 people in the hall, and they had a moment of silence, and the chairman of the club gave Brian, said some wonderful words about Brian and his commitment to golf and Nomads, and what a wonderful person he was. Okay, I'm going to ask our current national chairman, Graham Bishop, to come up and read the Nomads Creed. And all nomads, just please be upstanding for the creed. And then I'll read out the message from John Hooper. Thanks, Glenn.
Sorry, nomads, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to stand just yet. I've got one or two things I just need to do prior to that. Let me sort this out here. How tall Glenn is. I just wanted to start off, I know Glenn's alluded to it already, but earlier this year I was attending the Boerland 30th anniversary. And before I went down there, Brian approached me and said, listen, Graham, please, can we get together? I was the national chairman at the time, and I'd like to give you some information and just relay and recall the day's experiences that he had that day, which Glenn alluded to, talking about playing with F.W. de Klerk. And he brought with him the 1993 tournament magazine. So I thought I'd just, there was an article, there's two excerpts from that magazine that I'd like to read for quickly, please. This was part of the national magazine for the 93 tournament, which was played down in the Southern Cape. At the time, Brian was chairman, as I mentioned, and this was his part of the article that he wrote, and I thought, let me read it because, you know, I think it's appropriate being 30 years old. When addressing the prize givings on my official visits to the clubs, I've stressed the importance of maintaining good relations with the golf clubs at which we play our monthly games. This, I believe, is of the utmost importance. As nomads, we enjoy playing South Africa's finest golf courses on a regular basis. Without access to these courses, we would cease to exist. It is therefore incumbent on us all to treat these clubs and their members with due respect when we enjoy the courtesy of their facilities. As my term of office draws to a close, I would like to record my sincere thanks to all nomads for their support. It has been an honor to serve this wonderful organization. And then also, I just thought, because this is also taken verbatim from that evening, so, you know, I think it's fairly appropriate being 30 years ago. And this is from the magazine where he had to inaugurate the state president at the time. Today is undoubtedly a very special day in the history of the Nomads Golf Club of South Africa. This, as we all know, is the first official meeting of the Boerland Nomads Golf Club. And what could be more fitting than to have our proceedings graced by the presence of South Africa's first citizen, our state president. Mr. de Klerk, we thank you for being with us today, and we thank you more importantly for graciously accepting honorary membership of our golfing society in becoming a nomad. Believe that comprises men from all walks of life, all races, and all creeds, who are united by the two common causes, the love of the game of golf and compassion for those less fortunate than ourselves. And in the short time I have known you, sir, you fit that bill perfectly. We are aware of the enormous constraints on your time which your position demands, but we do hope that whenever your schedule permits you, that you will join any of the Nomads clubs and play in any of their monthly meetings, even if you have to do so, sir, at short notice. We will always accommodate you, you will always be welcome, and we can assure you of the fellowship and camaraderie of the Nomads Golf Club. It is now my honor and my privilege to induct the state president of the Republic of South Africa. Well, how very appropriate, and lovely memories. And I was down there for the 30th anniversary. I know Brian, at the time, he said to me that although he was always going to be a Gauteng nomad, he always regarded the Boerland club as his second club. So on that note, if you'll bear with me, I've also received a message from the Boerland nomads, which I'd like to read out. Unfortunately, our national senior vice chairman couldn't be here today. He was supposed to be here today, but he had some business commitments and had to cancel his flight yesterday. Mark Philp was also due to fly up. Unfortunately, I think he's stuck somewhere. So they've asked me just to read this out on behalf of the Boerland nomads, if you'll just bear with me. Ladies and gentlemen, nomads, friends and family, we gather here today to celebrate the life of a remarkable man, Brian Cusins. Brian was a passionate and dedicated member of the Nomads Golf Club, an honorary life member and the founding national chairman of the Boerland Nomads Golf Club. Brian's legacy in the world of nomads and his impact on our lives extend far beyond the fairways and greens. Brian was a man who lived life to the fullest, and he did so with an incredible zest for nomads. His love for the game was evident in his every swing, his every putt, and his every smile on and off the course. But it wasn't just his passion for nomads that endeared him to us. It was his warmth, his camaraderie, and his unwavering commitment to the values of sportsmanship and friendship that truly set him apart. As an honorary life member of the Nomads Golf Club, Brian demonstrated what it means to be a dedicated and loyal member. He was always there, ready to lend a helping hand, offer advice, or simply share a laugh with his fellow nomads. His presence brought a sense of unity and camaraderie to nomads, and for that, we are forever grateful. But Brian's impact extended even further. As the founding national chairman of the Boland Nomads Golf Club, it was under his leadership that this club was born. He was instrumental in creating a club that would not only excel on the golf course, but would also foster a sense of community and belonging amongst its members. His vision and dedication have left an indelible mark on the golfing community in the Boland region. Beyond his golfing achievements and leadership roles, Brian was a man of great character. He was known for his kindness, his humility, and his willingness to always lend a helping hand to those in need. His generosity knew no bounds, and he made a positive impact on the lives of so many. As we mourn the loss of Brian, let us also celebrate the incredible life he lived. Let us remember the countless rounds of golf played, the laughter shared, and the friendship forged on and off the course. Let us carry forward his legacy by embodying the values he held dear: sportsmanship, camaraderie, and a deep love for nomads. In closing, let us take a moment to reflect on the words of Bobby Jones, one of the greatest golfers of all time, who said, Golf is the closest game to the game we call life. You get bad breaks from good shots, you get good breaks from bad shots, but you have to play the ball where it lies. Brian played the ball where it lay in golf and in life with grace and determination. Thank you, Brian, for your unwavering dedication to the Boland Nomads Golf Club and for the profound impact you had on our lives. Rest in peace, dear friend, and may your drives always find the fairway in the great golf course beyond. Nomads, please, if you'll stand up, thank you. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Rest in peace, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, we've got just two more that I'm aware of. Robin Gray's going to come say a few words, and then Bernie Lane. If there is anybody else who wants to say anything, please just come up to the mic once Bernie Lane's finished talking. Then I'll then read out that message, and then we'll conclude the proceedings. So, Robin, please come up.
Noreen and the Cusins family, it's a privilege and an honor to stand here in memory of a very good man. I arrived in Johannesburg when I was a 22-year-old boy, and to develop the sales of our steel company that I worked for. And one of the tasks was to develop it, and that was in 1976. And that's when I met Brian Cusins. That's 47 years ago. It was quite a daunting task because Brian was a well-respected businessman, and together with Steve Sherwood, his financial director and shareholder, they were quite a tough nut to crack. And through our endeavors, huge respect from my sales rep friend and myself, we got from the likes of Brian and Steve, and they were very instrumental in forging my life, actually. Many a meeting was held at W.J. Perry and Benrose, and in most cases, I think the investment was made by the two directors to rather decorate or build a bar than have a boardroom. So invariably, a number of our meetings were held in the afternoon, and they didn't end in the office. They ended, of course, in the bar. And that, if I recall correctly, Steve, was built by Davy Churns. And of course, the traffic would arrive, Sid Green, Josh Stewart, David Churns, and many of the other guys. And some of the old nomads will know which characters I'm talking about. We decided, Henry, my partner at the time, who's since passed sadly, that we didn't want to work for a company. We wanted to start our own business. And in '78, we approached Brian Cousins and Steve Sherwood and two other customers, and we asked for their guidance to start a business. And all three customers supported us, gave us letters that we in those days could take to the bank. And I have to say, through the guidance, integrity, wisdom of someone like Brian Cousins, we were able to, through a huge amount of encouragement, be able to start that business in 1980. And we still have that business today. So based on his knowledge and foundation and wisdom, he led us through the difficult times of business, and that's why I have this huge respect for this giant of a man. So he loved to have a beverage every now and again, and we were part of that, whether it was the Flying Club or the VLC or the pub in Benrose. And I cannot ever have thanked him enough, and of course the other two guys who have since passed many years ago, and Cuzzy was the last of the three customers that was willing to support us in our endeavors. So may his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, what to say about Cuzzy? You know, I've known the Cousins family for many, many, many years. Brian and I were actually rivals at school. He was at one primary school and I was the other. And from those early days in soccer, we used to have competition between the schools, and so we weren't always friends, even though he was my best friend. And I've known him since he was 11. I was 10 years of age when I met Brian, and different schools. Then eventually we progressed to high school, and Brian was always the clever one. We never knew why Brian never had to study, and he still got top of the class, and all the rest of us never did much. But anyway, that was the way things happened. At our weddings, there were three of us. There was Robbie Gula and Brian and myself, and we all stood in the queue, the three of us, over the years. And Gary just reminded me, I actually found a photograph of Gary and Sandy in my collection, and I sent it to Brian. And the next week we had lunch in Hawaii, And I said, do you like the pictures, Brian? He said, yes. Who's that of? Son, that's your family. He said, no. I said, yes, Gary and Sandy, you know Noreen, in 1971 at Belita, when there was only one house in Belita. They were on holiday in Belita. So Gary didn't even, he said to me, no, he admitted that he didn't know who was in the photograph, but it was he. Nevertheless, as I say, we all stood together to married. Brian, I'll never forget, I can't remember how old we were, must have been early 20s. And we were at the gym one day and in walked a sexy lady in a little leotard. It was Noreen. Brian said, that's going to be my wife, Bern. I said, Brian, do me a favor. You haven't even met the chick. She said, I'm going to marry her. So now it's impossible, right? You don't even know, you haven't even been introduced to Noreen. Anyway, it came to be that Brian actually, I don't know how he forced his way to meet Noreen or how he got introduced to Noreen, but that was actually what happened. I was there. So I know that was what actually happened. And I was his best man it was my partner. I had the first dance at Brian's wedding with Ethel. And so, that's many, many years ago. I was married the year before. So, we were all married sort of in a short period of time.
He phoned me one night. He said, hello, this is Brian. And I said, oh, Brian Potter.
Yeah, that's not what it is.
Brian Cousins. He said, I'll go out with him.
Well, you did, Noreen, and it paid off, didn't it? Yeah, look at Sandy. And as I say, it was a long journey. I mean, we still continue that journey today. We still have lunches together, and all by myself. I think it was only 2 weeks before that we had our last lunch together. And we always reminisce and have thoughts of the good old times. Brian wasn't always an angel. We were naughty boys. As boys would be boys when we were young. I'm not going to tell those stories, but we were naughty as any boys would be. We played soccer together. Brian and I used to go to soccer in Germiston City on the back of his motorbike. Brian he loved motorbikes, and he had a 250cc Java. And him and I used to carry the kit on the back, and Brian used to drive the motorbike. How we stayed on the motorbike, I don't know, but nevertheless, we played soccer for years, and every Tuesday and Thursday, religiously on the motorbike. He insisted on going on the motorbike, right throughout the winter, freezing cold. And that's a brave Brian was. He was, as I said, if he wanted to go on the motorbike, we were going on the motorbike, and that was that. And Brian was always the big organizer. We were told on a Wednesday, we're going to this party on Friday night. Not that we were invited, but we were going to that party or this party, or we're meeting these chicks, and he always arranged our girlfriends for us. We just went along, and we had to choose between who's having who. And the worst thing was that on most occasions, we'd go out on the first night, and we'd sort of pair off, and we boyfriend and girlfriend, and then they come the next one. What are we doing on Friday? No, we're going here and there. What about the chicks? No, we're not taking the chicks. Oh, okay. And you'd get to the party, and Brian's got my chick. I said, Brian, I thought we weren't taking chicks. Oh, okay, can't you hear? Sorry. He said, I said, but that's my girlfriend. He said, yeah, but I'm taking her out tonight. And that is how it went between all of us. You didn't know whether one week or the next whether you had a girlfriend or didn't have a girlfriend, because we were rather clandestine when we arranged these dates. Anyway, that was how we got on so well together. Played soccer all the years, and we were always together. I actually taught Brian to play golf, and I got a lot of injuries through that, because there was a lot of shanks and a lot of mishits and a lot of shots that went astray that found me as the mark. But we persevered, and then, as I say, Brian got he was at Rand Mines, and he got membership at the ERPM Golf Club. That was in probably 64. I'm not sure. Gary, Gary wasn't there. And Brian got membership, and he said, "Burn, come and join. I'll get you." I said, "Brian, I can't afford to do membership. You get it for nothing, but you're a mine member. But I've got to pay." And then I remember a couple of weeks later, a friend of mine said to me, "Burn, don't you want to become a member?" I said, "Yeah, of course I want to become a member." And they introduced me to the then mine manager, he was this big guy. And when you're a little golfer, you respect the chairman of the club. And he said, "You want to become a young member, young man?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Okay, I'll think about it." And on a Sunday morning, he came to me and he said, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes, Mr. Miller." He said, "You want to become a member?" He says, "Yes." He said, "Give me a check for 250 rand. I nearly fainted. I didn't even have a checkbook, never mind 250 rand. So I went home, and I was sort of rather depressed. And my wife said to me, "What's wrong?" I said, "No, they've asked me to become a member at ERPM, and it's 250 rand. And we thought about this the whole of the rest of the Sunday afternoon, and we never came to a solution. And on the Monday, we went to to my late wife's mom's house, and we told her the sad story that I'd got a chance of becoming a member, but we haven't got the 250 rand to become a member. So my mother-in-law said, "Don't worry, we'll give you the 250 rand. Geez, it was wonderful. I could take the money there the next week. And it took me 2 years to pay it off. It was 10 rand a month for 2 years. So, but I did get the membership, and Brian and I played in a lot of competitions and a lot of knockouts, and we played a lot of golf those years and in the 60s when we were still good golfers. Nevertheless, as I say, Brian was an avid golfer. He loved the game of golf, like he loved soccer, like he loved any sport that he took place in. So, as I say, I've only got fond memories of Brian, and I'll miss him dearly. I'll miss the lunches we used to have now. We'll still carry on with Noor and have lunches and reminisce. And yes, Brian, rest in peace. We're all going to miss you, but unfortunately, that's the way we all go. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so pleased to have been able to speak to you today and just pass on those few little memories of Brian that's so cherished and so, they're in my heart, and you can never change those. So my condolences once again to the Cusins family. I've known you for all these years, and we all miss and going to reminisce over Brian for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, we basically finished. I'm just going to read that message from John Hooper. Sorry, I should have got that organized before I did this. Okay, dear Noreen, I tried to call but could only leave a message. Sorry to have missed you. As I mentioned, unfortunately we are away on holiday, and if the memorial service is indeed on the 5th, we will miss that too. I'm very distressed that is the case. But I do want to share with you some sentiments. As you know, our friendship goes back to the mid-1960s, some 58 odd years, and although we have not spent all that much time together in recent years, it has always been special. I have tremendous admiration for Brian. His courage and self-belief in giving up a secure job to follow an opportunity and challenge with a young family was quite something. And of course, he could not have done that without your support. And what a success he made of it. He had to start up from nothing, doing everything himself, except perhaps the bookkeeping that I helped him with, even responding to the alarm in the middle of the night. He was a great friend to many, as the respect shown by the golfing community demonstrates. He helped me with my golf too. I bought his old clubs from him way back then for 30 rand. I recall, which he let me pay off. But remember, that was about 10% of my salary. Introduced me to ERPM and later facilitated my entry into Kensington with the kind assistance of Neville Clark. But he was more than that, a good solid buddy to have in every respect. I remember that we cared for one another's houses in our Hazeldean days, when we were away, for example. We will certainly miss him. You and your fine family can be justifiably proud. We wish you every blessing as you journey on. Love to you and your family, John. And then Anne sends her love as well. Okay, this has been streamed to overseas, so Nicole and Stacey, I believe, are watching it. I hope you've been able to see just how much your grandfather was loved. I think Jamie's in Stellenbosch and watching there, and Liam is here with us, the other grandchild. Your grandfather was a special man. I'm going to just finish off with the last reading. Then there are buckets of beers and ciders and the likes in this room next door here. Food will be served. There's many platters. We've catered, or the Cousins family have kindly catered for as many people as we have here. So there will be enough food to go around for everybody. There's an open bar. Slowly, nomads. No Johnny Walker doubles. No, I know nomads are respectful and won't do that. I'm just going to read this final message here, and then we will conclude the proceedings. Thanks to VLC, Chad, for what you've done for the thing streaming overseas, and thank you very much to everybody for coming, and Noreen and family, we're always here for you. And this, I think, Brian might have said to you. Feel no guilt in laughter. He'd know how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that he is not here to share. You cannot grieve forever. He would not want you to. He'd hope that you could carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times and the way you showed you cared. The days you spent together, all the happiness you shared. Let memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day. Thank you, everybody.
Gabby.